Okay, so let's dive into a new kind of global conflict. This one isn't fought over territory with tanks and soldiers, but over the tiny, absolutely essential minerals that power our entire modern world. You know, everything we rely on, our digital lives, the big push for green energy, even our national defense systems, it all depends on just a handful of special minerals. And they're often dug out of the earth in some pretty remote and challenging places.
And that question right there is the heart of this new global power struggle. It's a conflict that's not fought with armies, but with control over supply chains, logistics, and the raw materials that are literally building our future.
So to really get a handle on this conflict, we've got to first understand the sheer scale of China's dominance in this space. And believe me, it's a story that's been decades in the making. Just so we're all on the same page, we're not just talking about rocks here. These are what we call critical minerals, and they're the building blocks of the 21st century. We're talking about everything from the smartphone in your pocket to the most advanced military tech out there. Let's take a specific example. Look at gallium. It's absolutely essential for advanced semiconductors and 5G tech. While China produces a staggering 95% of the world's supply, that's not just a majority, it's a near total chokehold. And it's a similar story with refining rare earths, the elements that are crucial for those powerful magnets inside electric vehicles and wind turbines. China controls 91% of the entire global refining process. So this is where things get really interesting. This is the point where China's dominance shifts from being just an economic fact to being a powerful strategic weapon in an escalating trade war. And the dynamic was pretty straightforward, really. The U.S. moved to restrict China's access to advanced chip technology, saying it was a national security risk. And then China retaliated by restricting the export of the very minerals needed to make those chips. A clear cause and effect. And just like that, the stage was set for a direct, head-to-head confrontation. Each side was leveraging its biggest strengths, American technology on one side and Chinese control of raw materials on the other. And you can see how quickly this escalated on the timeline. October 2022, the U.S. announces chip controls. By July 2023, boom, China hits back on key minerals. The U.S. doubles down that October, and just a few days later, China adds graphite to its own list. It was a rapid tit-for-tat exchange. Now, these high-level policy moves didn't just stay in the headlines. They sent some dramatic and, frankly, painful shocks right through the global market. Let's go back to gallium. Its price in Europe shot up by 365%. I mean, can you imagine trying to run a business when the cost of your main ingredient more than quadruples basically overnight? And this wasn't just a one-off. Germanium, which is critical for high-end electronics and fiber optics, saw its price in Europe soar by a massive 400%. And then there's antimony. It's vital for military munitions and for next-gen batteries. Its price jumped 437%. So you've got both the defense and the green energy sectors getting hit at the exact same time. That's the kind of shock that can make building a new EV battery plant suddenly look way more expensive. This chart right here tells the whole story. The green line, that's the European price for gallium, and it tracks pretty closely with the price in China. But just look at what happens right after those export controls are announced. It completely detaches and just goes vertical. That's a market in crisis. But it wasn't just about the price going up. The physical supply was literally being choked off. Global export volumes for things like unwrought antimony dropped by an incredible 94%. The tap was effectively turned off. So, with its back against the wall, how did the U.S. respond to this squeeze? Well, it placed a very high-stakes bet on a single company to try and fix the problem. Faced with this huge supply chain vulnerability, the U.S. government started backing a domestic player, MP Materials. And the goal was incredibly ambitious: to rebuild an entire American supply chain from digging the stuff out of the ground all the way to the finished magnet. And, it didn't take long for analysts to start calling it what it is. They began describing the company in these really stark terms, saying it's being set up as a strategic national asset that simply cannot be allowed to fail. And we're not talking about a normal business investment here. This is the U.S. government actually holding a financial stake in the company. The Pentagon is providing price guarantees and promising to buy their products. This basically turns a publicly traded company into an instrument of national strategy. And to put a number on it, these federal investments give the government a really powerful position. We're talking about an effective 15% stake in the company. So the government is now a major player at the table.
Okay, so let's pull back for a second. What does this massive shift towards weaponized supply chains and state-backed national champions actually mean for the rest of us?
Well, for one thing, it means we're watching a fundamental change happen in real time. The era of building supply chains based purely on what's cheapest and most efficient, that might just be over. It's being replaced by a new reality, one where national security is what dictates how and where the world's most important materials get produced. And that leaves us with a really critical question for the future. When you're facing a monopoly that's being used as a weapon, is the best answer to create your own state-sponsored one? Is that the real solution, or is it just the first move in a new and maybe even more volatile global game?